It is the beginning of December. It is almost the end of the year, and yes, I know I've been gone for a while, but we're not going to be getting into that. Today, I am going to be talking about the 1-star picks I made in November to read in November. Did I get them done? What did I think of them? Were they deserving of the 1-star reviews? Let's get down to it. Hey everyone, it's Ray. Welcome to my little bookish corner of the world, which has changed just a tiny bit in the time I have been absent. So I am going to be talking about all the 1-star review books, well, the 1-star review picks from this jar that I made at the end of October for November. I am not going to be picking any this month because I am going to be adding some of the 1-star reviews to my 25 for 2025, which I'm going to be doing a little bit later on in the month. So until that point, let's start talking about the 3 books I picked, which were Stephanie Garber's Caraval, the start of the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and a pick that I wasn't so sure about and had actually been on my shelf for 18 months, and that is The Library of Broken Worlds by Alea Dawn Johnson. So, did these actually live up to their original hype, or were they as bad as those 1-star reviews actually made out? To start with, I'm going to go to the last book I actually read this month, which was The Library of Broken Worlds by Alea Dawn Johnson. And the review for that was, perhaps this narrative style just isn't for me, or maybe this book just sucks. Who knows? So thank you for that review. I have to be honest, I didn't like this book. It was probably one of my worst reads of November, and that's saying something. I read 9 books in the month, and I think the highest rating I gave anything was 3.75 on Storygraph. If you want to check that out, I will post the link down below so you can have a look at my Storygraph and all the books I've read. So, as the daughter of a library god, Frida has spent her whole life exploring the library's ever-changing tunnels and communing with the gods. Her unparalleled access makes her unique and dangerous. When Frida meets Joshua, a mortal boy desperate to save his people, and Negoi, a disciple from a persecuted religious minority, Frida is compelled to break ranks with the gods and help them. But in order to do so, she will have to venture deeper into the library than she has ever known. There she will discover the atrocities of the past, the truth of her origins, and the impossibility of her future. With the world at the brink of war, Frida embarks on a journey to fulfill her destiny, one that pits her against an ancient god. Her mission is straightforward: destroy the god before he can rain hellfire upon thousands of innocent lives, if he doesn't destroy her first. A girl matches wits with a war god in this kaleidoscopic epic tale of oppression and the cost of peace, where stories hide within other stories and narrative has the power to heal or to burn everything in its path. Now, I'd heard some very good things, and I have to be honest, the fact that this cover is stunning really made me want to like the book, but it was so confused. And I know that this is a YA novel, but double space, massive font, and I was immediately pulled away from the story. There are stories within stories. There's a lot of mythology or cultural myth within this book, which I found quite interesting, and I enjoyed the writing style of Alea Dawn Johnson. I just didn't like this story. I found myself skimming as I got further into the book. Instead of being drawn into what I was reading, I found it was actually pulling me out of the story and making me less interested in reading further along. So when I finally got to the end, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. And I didn't want to do that because I wanted to like it. I really did. I went in with this is one of the books I've kept. I wanted to enjoy it. And all I found myself thinking was, when is this going to be over? I didn't find any of the characters in any way appealing or interesting. I didn't care to know anything more about them or the life that they live, the existence they have. The world didn't feel as though it had been very well built. And I ended up thinking, well, what was it I just read? In fact, as I finished the book, the first thought I had was, what exactly have I just finished? So while I didn't give it a 1-star review, I do understand where this particular reviewer was coming from, because I don't think this narrative style is for me. I found myself constantly being pulled away from the book and wanting to read something else. The fact that I had just read the 3rd book in another series is neither here nor there. I just found myself thinking, what have I just read, and did I even like any of it? So it ended up with a 2-star review from me. And mostly it was because I found the narrative didn't work for me personally. So sorry, the Library of Broken Worlds, you are not for me. And I don't think this author's writing style is for me, which makes me sad, because obviously she is a very talented writer, just not the kind of writer that I enjoy. So yeah, that was the first of the 1-star, though it was the last book I read in November. The next one's actually one of the first books I read in the month, and that was Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Now, I actually now need to find Caraval in my list of reviews, because it is quite long and I haven't read all of it at this point in time. So let's have a look. Da, 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 da. I apologise. This is taking a lot longer. Please take an advertising break at this moment. Go and make a cup of tea. Here we go. I can't believe how much I hated this book. Boring settings, boring characters, boring plot. I honestly wish I had never read this book. I've actually got the other 2 books in the series. I know there are now 3, with Spectacular having come out in November. I also have the spin-off series all about Jax. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read the blurb on the back before I get to my feelings on the book. I know that it is a cultural hit. It is the baby of TikTok after anything by Sarah J. Maas, but we will get to that. Once a year, the infamous Master Legend hosts Caraval, open only to those who have been invited. This year, the week-long game is on Legend's glittering Isla de los Sueños, where the winding streets are an elaborate snow-covered maze and the people are never who they seem. At midnight on the first day, the show begins and the visitors become players. Each of them is vying for the coveted prize, a single wish. All they must do is unravel the mystery of Caraval. But in a game where danger hides behind every charming smile, winning isn't without loss, and their wish might be their last. Now, I don't go by what other authors say about a book anymore. I used to, but I found that so many authors were saying incredible things about the book, and then I'd think, do I now think less of that author because they loved this book? But then everything is very subjective. That is the thing with opinion. And I can honestly say that the main characters, Scarlett and Tella, the 2 sisters, are... I didn't enjoy this book. It's the second, I really wanted to like it. I think that it has been so overhyped. I've had so many people say, oh, you can't read the other series, which is obviously on another shelf. And I can't even find the shelf it's on. Okay, here we go. Once Upon a Broken Heart, the series with Jax in it. I enjoyed the first book. It wasn't incredible, but I did enjoy it, and I didn't understand, obviously, the rest of the series I hadn't read yet, as is dictated by the fact that I'm just reading it now. But I didn't finish this book and immediately think I need to read the next one. I didn't think, oh, legendary, I need to pick this up right now. I do like the fact that it's floppy though. That's neither here nor there. but I just didn't like the characters. Yes, we have an enigmatic hero who has mystery, and Scarlet is pulled away from a life of she's living under her father, who is a power-hungry, abusive man. But really, it was so lacking in substance. I didn't go into it thinking, oh, I'm not going to like this because everybody loves it. And I came away from it thinking, well, I might read the next one at some point. And when I think that at some point, I know that I haven't enjoyed it as much as maybe I expected to. And I did expect to enjoy this. I've heard so many good things from people who have loved this series, who think Stephanie Garber's amazing, who think the Caraval series is brilliant. It's really enthralling. The characters are wonderfully crafted. The writing pulls you in. I didn't read this thinking I'm going to feel nothing. Yet I came away from it thinking, well, maybe not. So this is going on my pile of it wasn't what I expected. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. I think I gave it 3 stars when I finished it. I might have to check at a later date, but I think I gave it 3 stars purely because there was just something in it that didn't enthrall and entrance me as I wanted it to. This magical, mystical world, a carnival almost, an adventure, and I wasn't pulled in like I expected to be. And that kind of made me sad. And yet that's what this month really was. It was this wasn't quite what I expected. I don't know if I liked this. Yeah, 3 stars. Maybe the next book will pull me in a little bit more. I enjoyed Jax in Once Upon a Broken Heart. I liked his character. I found him quite intriguing and interesting. Whereas Julian and Scarlet and her sister, who's just selfish, and yeah, no, it was a story about self-service. Sorry. And yeah, I know that that's probably not a popular opinion, but it's mine. And the last book, and I can't believe I'm actually on the last book of November already, and the fact that I'm not picking any out for December, mostly because I have actually got 4 books to read on my 24 for 24, and I've got a book tour book to read, and all these there are so many things that I need to finish before the end of the year, and so many things I want to get done. I've got actually more time, which I will go into in a moment, but I just really want to ensure that I finish my 24 for 24 and pick out a really good 25 for 25. So I figured that this jar would actually give me a really good source of books for next year, or at least a few books for next year. I'm not going to pick every single one because otherwise I'm going to end up missing out on a lot of books that I've got coming up next year that I am looking forward to. So here we go. The last book, as I've already mentioned, is From Blood and Ash. It's the first in the Blood and Ash novel series, which currently stands at 5 novels. I believe the 6th one comes out next year. And there are also 4 spin-offs, which I believe are prequels to the series, talking about the main character, Poppy's great grandmother, I think, Seraphina. I believe that's what it's about, but I haven't actually picked them up. So this is the first one. I have to be honest, I was quite disappointed because as I was reading through it, one of the pages fell out, and literally I turned the page and the page just tore out. Well, it didn't even tear out, just sort of came away from the binding as I was turning it, and all I could think was, no, these are so expensive because they are printed by Amazon. They cost about £16-17 each, and they're paperback. So I was sort of disappointed when I was reading through it. It only happened with this one, but I was reading through it and the page just came away from the binding, and you can probably see it. It doesn't quite lay flush any longer. So I'm trying to be really careful so I don't pull out any more, just in case another one decides to come free. Anyway, this is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and the reviewer stated, I present to you a tale of questionable consent, bad boys with amber eyes, and foreshadowing so terrible I predicted every plot twist. When I first picked this up, I looked at it and thought, wow, it's 613 pages. And I was feeling quite intimidated because I had quite a lot to read this month, which I didn't get through, but we won't go there. And I thought, that's a lot to read. I'm going to struggle because the review is absolutely dreadful. And I have to be honest, I've read this one and I've read the 2 follow-ups, which are Kingdom of Flesh and Fire and The Crown of Gilded Bones, because I really wanted to find out what happened next. I'm obviously in that frame of mind where I needed something relatively mindless. It wasn't badly written, and this is where I have a struggle. I have got Fall of Ruin and Wrath, which is a traditionally published book by this same author, Jennifer L. Armentrout. It's the start of a new series. It's Fae focused. And I think that my issue must be with Fae. And I say that because I read the first 2 books in the ACOTAR series and I didn't like them because I wasn't interested in the Fae politics. I got a copy of Fae Bound and I didn't even bother opening it before I sold it on because it was a Fae focused novel. I read a load of novels by Karen M. Moaning, who wrote a series about Highlanders. And we reached the final book in the series and it was revealed that one of them was Fae. And she wrote another series that was all about Fae bonding and everything else. Didn't even bother with it. I picked up the first one, read half of it and put it down and never went back to it. I think that my issue is with Fae. That sounds really bad. I just don't happen to like all the fairies and the Fae world. It's not my thing. Though I did like Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands and the Encyclopedia of Fairies. I enjoyed both of those, but they were focused more on the human to Fae, but it was more human than Fae. So I enjoyed that. I liked the fact this was about vampires and shifters. I didn't like, I don't like Twilight, not my thing at all. I read them, I devoured them at one point, and then I realised that actually, did I really enjoy that, or was I reading it because it was in, and I read it because it was in? But I enjoyed the vampire, the werewolves, the changelings and everything else. Yes, a changeling is a fairy thing, but it's done differently. And From Blood and Ash actually pulled me in. I cared about them. Yes, I found the fact that she'd named her main character Penelope a bit ridiculous. Reminded me very much of Feyre. It's like, why? Her sisters have normal names. Why name her Feyre? And then they called her Poppy all the way through. Did I have issues with certain things? Yes, I did. I do go into those in far more detail in my podcast episode, which was released on the 2nd of December. I will post a link below so you can listen to it. I think the biggest issue that I had with this was Castile constantly referring to how Poppy tasted when they did the deed. And he constantly talks about how she tastes like honeydew melon. And if I read that once, I read it 1,000 times, especially in the follow-up books. Totally unnecessary. I don't need to know all of that. Mention it once, by all means. Have conversations about it off page, by all means. Insinuate it, but don't talk about it again. We don't need to hear it. I don't need to know. I don't want to know. And I think it's repetitive for repetitive sake, you know? But I did enjoy this. Was it amazing? No. Did it make me think, oh my God, every single book by this author is going to be incredible? No. And I will tell you for why. Because I did not like A Fall of Ruin and Wrath, and I will not be buying any more books in that series. However, I am very tempted to purchase the books in the prequel series because I like the idea of reading about Niktos. He sounds interesting. He sounds very dark. And yes, there is that cliche about a bad boy makes for an interesting main male character. And he does. Castile is, yeah, okay, so the review does talk about his amber eyes. But it kind of makes sense when you realise that he is not exactly human or a member of the Ascended or anything else. He is essentially, he's a vampire. At least he hasn't got sparkly skin, you know? So I will come away from this saying From Blood and Ash was probably my preferred read out of all of these 3 books. And they were the higher rated books, but I still only gave them 3.75. I didn't sit there and go, they are so amazing, they deserve a 4.5 or a 5. In fact, I think I've only rated 7 books this year with a 5-star rating. But I'm going to get down to that when I review everything I've read this year and pick out my top and bottom 5 of 2024. I might pick my top and bottom 4. I'm not sure. This won't be on them, but one of those may well be on the bottom part of my list. There are quite a number of books that I've read this year that have been somewhat disappointing. And yeah, actually, there's quite a few books that have been very disappointing this year, and only a few have been amazing. So that's going to be an interesting one to do, and I'm looking forward to picking my 25 for 2025. Once I've finished my 24 for 2024, because yeah, I haven't quite got there yet, despite having read 124 books. So 24 of them should realistically have been the 24 I picked out, really. I'm looking forward to getting through those, and now I can get to why I've got the time. A couple of weeks ago, I was unfortunately a victim of natural job wastage and got made redundant. So I have got the entirety of December to sort out finding a new job, but also to create new content for the website, for YouTube, and for my podcast. So you will be seeing a bit more of me, and that is why I haven't been around quite so much this month. Well, in November, because I had a lot of job searching to do, and I also sadly lost a very close friend who passed away suddenly, and she was somebody I talked about books a lot with. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of me, as I have no one. Well, I have a few friends who I can talk books with, but I'm going to be talking books a lot more with you. So those were the 3 books of November. They weren't the only 3 books I read, obviously, but these were my 3 1-star review picks for November. And if you've got any feedback, if you think that I've been a little bit harsh or misinterpreted something, you think maybe I should have rated it a little bit higher when I did my review, please do leave a comment in the notes below, or get in touch. I would love to hear from you. And also, if you've got any recommendations for books maybe that you think I should pick up a little bit sooner, send me a note, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Until next time, bye.